The knock came at 9:47 p.m., loud enough to startle me from the kitchen where I'd been making a tea I didn't want, opening cabinets in a cabin that wasn't mine and never would be. I knew it was bad weather out there. I'd been watching the sky darken since I arrived that afternoon, that particular October darkness that feels personal, like the clouds are settling directly onto your shoulders. But I hadn't expected a visitor. The property was 3 miles from the nearest neighbor, accessible by a road that the locals had warned me about in the general store, where I'd stopped for coffee and directions. When I opened the door, the woman standing on the porch was soaked through, her dark hair plastered to her face, and she was laughing, actually laughing. Despite the fact that her car sat crooked in the driveway, one headlight aimed at the trees. "I am so sorry," she said, still grinning, water dripping from her jacket onto the worn welcome mat that had probably been here since Uncle Richard was alive. "I know this is insane. My GPS died, and I took what I thought was a shortcut. And then I hit that pothole, and now the car won't turn over, and my phone's at 3%. And honestly, I am just going to stand here until you close the door or invite me in, because those seem to be my only two options." She was about 40, maybe 45, with the kind of unself-conscious confidence that made me immediately uncomfortable. I could see it in the way she stood, weight on one hip, chin tilted slightly up, entirely unconcerned about being a stranger asking shelter from a stranger. She wore layers of technical fabrics and had a camera hanging from a strap around her neck, protected by a waterproof bag even though the rest of her was drenched. "Come in," I said, because I am not a monster, and because the alternative, leaving someone stranded, felt impossible even after Stephanie had spent the last 3 years making me feel like my capacity for basic kindness was somehow naive and foolish. Her name was Maya. She'd been driving from New Hampshire to Massachusetts, chasing the foliage for a portfolio assignment, and had detoured up this road because she'd read something online about a overlook with a view of the valley. "Turns out the internet is full of lies," she said, shaking water from her hair like a dog as I handed her a towel from the linen closet. "Or I am just directionally challenged. One of those." I had her leave her wet clothes in the bathroom and brought her a flannel shirt and sweatpants from the bedroom. My clothes, not my uncle's, which still hung in the closet upstairs like a museum exhibit of a man I'd met maybe 6 times in my life. Maya didn't ask a lot of questions about why there were apparently a man's clothes here, or why I seemed to be living out of a suitcase in what was clearly supposed to be someone's home. By 11 p.m., the rain had turned biblical. Not metaphorical biblical, actually the kind of rain that sounds like the sky is throwing itself against the roof. Maya sat at the kitchen table in my clothes, drinking the tea I'd made, which she apparently wanted, unlike me, and checked her phone. The power went out somewhere around midnight, which seemed to genuinely delight her. "When's the last time you were somewhere without electricity?" she asked. "I live in Arlington," I said. "Arlington, Virginia, we have electricity." That's not what I asked. I couldn't remember. That was the real answer. After Stephanie and I married, our vacations had become increasingly manicured. Resorts with infinity pools, cities with restaurants you had to book 6 months in advance. The last time I'd been somewhere genuinely remote, I'd been 24 and broke and convinced I was going to figure out who I was before I got tied down by responsibility. Then I got tied down at 27. "I don't know," I told her. Maya found candles in the kitchen drawers and set them around the small living room. The cabin was the kind of place that either looked like a murder location or a fairy tale depending on the lighting, and candlelight seemed to shift it decidedly toward the latter. Outside, the rain was a white noise so complete it felt like Wed stepped inside a snow globe. "Tell me about this place," she said, curling up in the armchair across from me. "You clearly don't want to be here, and Ure sitting in a cabin during a power outage like this is the last place you expected to be." "My uncle died," I said. "I inherited it. I came to clean it out and put it on the market." "Ah." She nodded like that explained everything. "Was he nice?" "I barely knew him. He was my dad's brother, and they didn't really talk, and he never married, and I think he just kind of lived out here, and that was his entire life. I never understood why my dad didn't visit more, but now I am starting to think maybe this place requires a certain amount of comfort with yourself that we didn't have in my family." I hadn't planned to say that. It came out like water through a crack, uncontrolled. Maya was quiet for a moment, watching the candlelight flicker across the room. When she spoke, her voice was different, less performative, more real. "I know that feeling. That thing where you realize everyone in your family is just running from something, but you're all too polite to actually talk about it. You have family issues?" I asked, and the moment the question left my mouth, I cringed. Of course she did. Everyone did. We all have family issues. "I was engaged," she said, 5 years ago. I was going to do the whole thing, wedding, house, kids, the vision board life. And then I had a miscarriage at 16 weeks, and something about it just broke the spell. My fiancé and I both realized we were just going through motions we'd been told to go through, and we didn't actually want to be in those motions together. So I left, I bought a camera, I started driving. You've been driving for 5 years, in and out. I take assignments now, magazines, National Geographic sometimes. Instagram work if the money dries up. But yeah, I haven't lived anywhere for more than 6 months since then. I wake up and I want to be somewhere else, and now I just listen to that feeling instead of fighting it. I thought about Stephanie, about the fights that had become cold silences, about the way Id started sleeping in the guest room, and she never asked me to come back to bed. About how at some point Wed simply accepted that we'd become two people who happened to share an address. "Did you want the baby?" I asked. "Or were you just going through the motions with that too?" Maya took a long time to answer. "I think I did," she said finally. "Not because I wanted to be a mother, but because I wanted to know what it was like to want something that badly. And once I lost it, I realized I couldn't trust my own desire anymore. I couldn't tell what I actually wanted versus what I'd been trained to want. So I stopped staying anywhere long enough to have to figure it out. That hurt to hear. It hurt because I recognized it. "I think I'm just broken," I said, and the admission landed in the dark like a stone in water, sending out ripples I couldn't control. My ex-wife now, the divorce was finalized 4 months ago. She was the whole point of my life. And I didn't realize that until she left. I didn't have anything else. No hobbies, no friends I'd maintained, no real sense of what I wanted to do with the time I had. I just followed her life, supported her decisions, and thought that was love, and apparently it was just dependency with better packaging. Maya got up and sat on the arm of my chair, and after a moment, she took my hand. Her hand was warm and small, and it felt like an anchor. "Do you want to stay here?" I asked. "I mean, the roads are probably not passable right now." "I have nowhere else to be," she said. "My next assignment isn't for 2 weeks, and they just want coverage of fall foliage, so it could be anywhere. I am not needed anywhere. There was such acceptance in the way she said it, and I envied her for that. She stayed on the arm of the chair, and we talked until the candles burned down to nubs, and then I found more candles, and we talked through the night. We talked about the ways we'd tried to be smaller versions of ourselves to fit into other people's lives. We talked about the moment you realize you've been pretending so long you can't remember what's real anymore. We talked about the fear that maybe there's nothing underneath all the performance, that if you strip away what you're supposed to be, there's just empty space. Around 5 a.m., Maya fell asleep with her head against my shoulder, and I sat very still, not wanting to move, not wanting to break whatever this was. The power came back on at dawn, but the rain didn't stop. If anything, it got worse. I drove into town and called a tow truck, and the guy told me the roads were washed out north of the cabin, and the water might not recede for a couple days. When I got back, Maya was in the kitchen making breakfast with things Shed found in the cupboards and the small cooler of groceries I'd bought. She was still wearing my clothes. She looked comfortable in them. "We're stuck," I said. "Yeah," she said. I figured. Something shifted in the air between us. I felt it like barometric pressure, like the moment before a storm breaks. She turned from the stove, and we looked at each other, and neither of us pretended anymore. We slept together that afternoon, in the bed upstairs, while the rain hammered on the roof, and the rest of the world felt very far away. It wasn't casual. It felt significant in a way that terrified me because significant things are fragile, and I'd spent the last decade learning to keep my hands very gentle around fragile things, which only meant they broke anyway. After we lay in the dark, the power had gone out again, and she traced patterns on my chest. "This is a fantasy," she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, it's the isolation. It's the intimacy of being stuck together. When the road's clear, it'll be different. I know, I'm not going to stay. I can't stay. I don't know how to stay. I know, I said again. But I want you to know that this was real. What happened between us? It might be temporary, but it was real. I didn't answer because I was trying not to hope, and hope kept trying anyway, stubborn and unwelcome as a weed. The roads cleared on the third day, or at least clear enough. A tow truck came and got her car running. There was nothing keeping her here anymore. There was nothing keeping me, either, except that now I didn't want to leave. She packed her things back into her bag. She was wearing her own clothes again, dry and clean and ready for the road. She stood in the driveway, and I stood with her, and we both knew we were standing at a fork where one path went toward something and the other went toward nothing, and neither of us was brave enough to call the other brave for choosing their path. "You could call me," I said, "or email. We could do long distance." "People do that." "Do they?" Maya asked gently. "Or do they pretend for a while that they will, and then the calls get shorter and the emails come less often, and eventually they just accept that this was a moment that wasn't supposed to extend beyond its natural length?" Maybe. I wanted to argue, but I couldn't, because I'd seen that exact story play out 1,000 times, and I knew she was right. Or maybe they don't. Maybe this time is different. She stepped toward me and kissed me, and it tasted like goodbye and like possibility all at once, and I realized that those might be the same thing. "I have something for you," she said after, reaching into her bag. She pulled out a single photograph, already developed, already printed. It was the overlook Shed been trying to find, the one that didn't actually exist, the one Shed been chasing up a wrong road and found the cabin instead. Or maybe Shed taken it on the drive out. I don't know. The image showed a valley at dawn, fog rolling through the trees, everything still and golden and impossible. "I took it this morning," she said, "when you were still sleeping. But you didn't have, it's from my phone," she said. "I got it printed at the general store in town while you were sleeping, too. I came back early from the drive because I wanted to spend more time with you, and then I realized I was being stupid and sabotaging something that was already going to end, so I went to town instead. I looked at the photograph, at the world outside the cabin, beautiful and distant. So I said, you know that I would have asked you to stay." "Yes," she said. "And if I stay, we'll be happy for a while, and then one of us will start feeling trapped, and we'll slowly start to resent each other, and I'll get back in my car and leave anyway, except it will hurt worse because we'll have built something we thought was real. So I am leaving now, while it's still perfect, while it's still ours." She got in the car, and I watched her drive away, and I stood in the driveway for a long time after she was gone, holding a photograph of a place I'd never been and a valley that would probably never look that beautiful again. I stayed at the cabin for 2 more weeks. I cleaned it out methodically, boxing up my uncle's books, his clothes, the photographs of a life lived entirely alone. I found a letter in his desk, addressed to me but never sent, dated 3 years ago. In it, he wrote about the year he met someone, a woman passing through, who stayed for 3 months, and how those 3 months had contained more living than all the other years combined. He wrote about how she left because staying would have meant becoming someone other than who she was. He wrote about whether that made it real or imaginary, and he concluded that maybe the most real things are the ones that don't survive the world outside them. I listed the cabin with a local realtor. I told her I'd consider a lease option if someone serious came along, someone who wanted to live here long-term, someone who was running from something or toward something, or just wanted to stop moving for a while. I was thinking of Maya, irrationally, as if she might change her mind and come back, as if the universe might decide to rerun this story with a different ending. But she never did come back. I checked her Instagram sometimes. The photographs she posted from mountains in Colorado, beaches in Mexico, forests I didn't recognize. They were beautiful, and in some of them, I swore I could see the exact moment she was feeling something real, but maybe that was just me projecting, seeing what I wanted to see because the alternative was accepting that what Wed had was perfect precisely because it ended. The cabin sold 6 months later to a couple from Boston who wanted a weekend place. The realtor didn't mention my note about the lease option, and I didn't follow up. Some doors don't need to stay open. I kept the photograph. It sits on my desk now, in an apartment in Arlington that feels different since I came back to it. Lighter, somehow, as if I'd left part of my weight behind in Vermont. I am dating someone now, slowly, carefully, someone who knows I'm broken and doesn't seem to mind. I don't know if it will last, but I'm trying to stay present in it, to believe that real things don't always have to survive to matter. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd asked her to stay, or if I'd gotten in the car with her. But I think Maya was right. There are moments in life that are perfect not despite their impermanence, but because of it. We are the only people who will ever know exactly what happened in that cabin while the rain fell. Nobody can diminish it or complicate it or twist it into something smaller than it was. She gave me that. She gave me proof that I could feel something real again. And that sometimes the most generous thing love can do is know when to leave.